Hello, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's installment of what is now our weekly webinar series. So, my name is Virginia Hyland, and I'm TeamOhana's Director of Solutions Engineering, and really excited today to talk about one of TeamOhana's latest product releases, Teemo Recipes. So today we'll be doing a deep dive into three of our newest recipes. And in terms of the agenda, we'll be going through what are recipes and why did we build them. And then I'll be doing that deep dive into three recipes that you see on the screen there: start date drift, stalled roles, and hiring slippage. But before we get into it, just a few housekeeping notes. Please feel free to answer any questions in the chat. I'll try to answer them at the end if we have time. And otherwise, you can see the resources tab within the Zoom webinar for some helpful links to further information. Okay, so let's get started with a brief definition of what recipes are. So, recipes are a library of pre-built workforce analyses that anyone on your team can run in one click. So for those of you who are already customers of TeamOhana, you'll be able to see recipes already. And if you have access to them, there's up to 10 pre-built recipes already available to you. And there's a few more that are already on the way. And then you'll hear later on how you can request your own. So I want to dig in a little deeper on exactly how recipes works and what makes it so powerful for you to better understand your workforce data. So starting off, each recipe is pulling from your TeamOhana reconciled workforce data, so the answer is always accurate and up to date. So this means that recipes can pull from any data that already lives in TeamOhana, whether that's information about the hiring plan that lives directly in TeamOhana and is managed there, or whether that's data about your employees that we're pulling in from your HRIS, or about the status of your different headcounts, like where an offer is at from your ATS. Right, so it sits on top of our data architecture, can access any data, and it also, of course, respects our access controls. So whether you're in finance or TA, again, you'll only have access to the information that your regular user roles give you permission to. Now, starting off, the core of how a recipe works is actually a deterministic report. This means that the report is not AI generated every single time it's run. And the reason for that is because we really want the base of the data to be repeatable and predictable. So this is where TeamOhana comes in to really help you build out these recipes so that the base is based on deterministic data. The columns will show up the same every time. The types of data you see within the table will be the same, and the calculations will run the same way every time. Something that I'm very passionate about helping people understand is that AI is bad at math. My mom's a math teacher. She'd be very disappointed if AI was her child, because it would not be doing very well on its math tests. So that's where we have deterministic reports doing the math, and then layering on top of that is where the AI comes in. So starting with the generative insights, this is where AI is actually reading that report or that output for you and showing you where you should look. So it is good at identifying trends or patterns within data and highlighting for you insights across different variables in that report. So if you don't have time to scroll through the many rows in that base level set of data, you can come read the top headlines in a recipe. And then the next piece of that, some of you might be somewhat more familiar with already, the Teemo agentic chat, which allows you to ask any question in natural language about your workforce data and get an answer right away. This is now also available, so it's still available for you throughout the TeamOhana application, but now it's also embedded within every single recipe. So again, the Teemo is also starting with that additional context of the report. So here we're focusing on the span exceptions. It's already able to see this data, so it's coming from a much richer context when I ask follow-up questions on that data. And the idea here with the agentic chat is it allows me to dive deeper. Maybe I'm noticing a trend, or The insights that I see at the top here make me want to dig deeper into something else. That's what the agentic chat is meant for. So generative insights, very fast, quick insights from our data, whereas Teemo is more for deeper diving and deeper exploration. One last piece before we jump into recipes. I want to talk a little bit about TeamOhana's journey from Teemo to Teemo Recipes. So we launched our Teemo agentic chat. So that's our AI analyst where you can ask a question and we'll give you an answer back in November. And that was great. That really sort of unlocked a world of possibilities in terms of the types of data, reports, and graphics that TeamOhana was able to generate. Really, this helps us solve for the fact that one day you might want to see a report in one format and then realize, oh, actually, there's a better way to do this or a better way to show this. And so reports and visualizations are evolving over time, and Teemo allows you to keep up with that evolution and run new reports in real time. And then one thing or a few things we learned about the types of questions that people were asking. And we're all learning, I think by now we all sort of understand that generally a better prompt means you're getting a better response. So we're all learning how to become better prompters in our day-to-day life. A simple example I have here is maybe I just want to understand like what divisions have the most open rules. So I might start by asking the chat, show me all open rules. And so here I get a list broken down by head of the open roles, and I can see the department. Okay, that kind of answers my question. But if I give the chat slightly more context and I tell it I actually want a count of open roles by department, so break it down by department, now I get a much better response and it's much easier to read. So I get a roll up of the data I previously had. So that's great. It really allows us to explore and play around and see what insights we can gain. But let's say, and by the way, prompting is something that's very near and dear to my heart. You can check the resources for a link to our AI prompting guide or follow the link on the screen here. We can definitely do a separate webinar about that. But let's say we got to our holy grail prompt. We figured out exactly a new type of visualization that we want to be able to see. Maybe this is something that goes in a board report every quarter, or my CHRO is constantly asking me for this stacked bar chart every single month. Now I've gotten sort of to a place where I'm quite happy with my output. And I want to be able to just save this and come back to it. I actually don't need AI to help generate this novel view for me anymore. It already did a great job. It generated it once, and now I just want to refresh it with the most up-to-date data. And that's where recipes comes in. So now this view or this report becomes the deterministic basis where now rather than using AI to generate this query, we're just saving the query it already wrote so that you can rerun it and refresh it on an ongoing basis. And so with that, recipes allows us to easily recreate reliable, reusable reports that you learn and understand exactly what's in them and where it's coming from. And then we apply another layer of AI on top to give you quick insights and allow you to do deeper analysis with Teemo. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about how we got from Teemo to recipes. And like I mentioned, we are using Teemo to generate that initial basis for the recipe, which is what allows us to create more recipes very quickly and very easily. So in the coming weeks, you'll actually see an area within the platform where you can request your own new recipes. In the meantime, you can always reach out to your TeamOhana CSM to request one, and we can always build out more. So, like I mentioned, let's go into the demo now. There's about 10 recipes that you can choose from and add to your own view today. But if there's anything else that you want to see, it's very easy for us to add. So I'm just going to start off on the recipes landing page here. This is a customizable view. And I'll jump into our start date drift and we can start to talk about some of the specific examples that we've built for customers already. So start date drift is typically a view that TA or hiring leaders might want to see that allows you to analyze how many days have been added from a headcount's initially planned start date to its current target start date or its actual start date if the candidate has already been hired. So it's just a count of the days drifted that can help you spot planned start dates that are shifting so that teams can better understand the downstream impact on hiring plans, team capacity, and overall workforce execution. So I want to orient you on the page here. At the top is where we're seeing our summary of AI generated insights. So this is where I mentioned it's looking across all of the different variables that could be contributing factors to some of the trends that we're seeing. So for example, we can see that the public sector here is leading. This is a department is leading with a severe 268-day average drift. So we're hiring 268 days later than the initial plan across 10 different roles. Whereas we have these two other departments here, enterprise and operations, with the highest volume of issues, where they have 20 and 18 roles respectively. So a lot more headcount with some large average hiring delays as well. And then finally, this is a great use case for an LLM AI to look across and identify like, hey, VP, that's probably a high impact leadership role, or head of design, that's probably another important role that it's good to be aware of, that those higher impact roles are also shifting. Okay, so this is your AI summarized insight. Coming down here is the table with your more granular data. So now we're looking at headcount by headcount, how many days this headcount has drifted. So this is that deterministic view. Every time I come in and click refresh, this is just going to reload with the latest data from TeamOhana. Now, a few usability tips here. There are a lot of new recipes for you to understand. We're only covering 3 today. But each recipe has a very robust how it works section that tells you a little bit about what the recipe is and how we're measuring and calculating any new calculations that you're seeing in the column. So for example, here we can see that days drifted is calculated based on the actual, if it exists, or the target start date minus the initially planned start date. And we're filtering out any roles where the values are positive. Really, you would only see negative because my demo data is not great. So how it works, super helpful. And then the other usability pieces here, you'll also see that each headcount is deep linked like you're used to seeing throughout the TeamOhana platform. So I can actually take action directly from this report if I want to do something like update a target start date, or if I just want to dig into more information on that headcount. And then finally, if I want to export any of the views that I'm seeing here, I can always copy and paste them or download them to the appropriate file format so that I can either do further analysis or add them to a presentation. Coming down, one last piece we haven't looked at yet is the visualization. So each recipe has 1 or 2 visualizations to help you digest the data in a more visual format. So here, this is a roll-up that we're seeing the start date drift by division, so we can see which divisions are having the most challenges with hiring delays. And then on the right-hand side is our Teemo AI chat, which some of you might be familiar with already. So like I mentioned, it starts off with the context of the start date drift recipe. And here I've asked it which divisions have the most start date delays, and it's given me a result here. So to summarize start date drifts, they highlight where headcount gets pushed over time. Um, but this is one thing. What about roles that probably should be moved out because there's been no activity on them? So these are highlighting roles for you like, hey, these roles have been delayed significantly, and you might want to look into that or just understand how that's adding load to the rest of the year. But in some instances, there are roles where the dates haven't been pushed out, but they're not actually actively being worked on. So that's going to take us into the next recipe to cover today, stalled rolls. So stalled rolls looks at how many days since a given headcount last activity has since stalled roles considers how long a role has been open and how long since the date of the last activity on that role in order to identify which roles are stuck, and which ones might be overlooked. So if a role has been open for a decent amount of time and is in an in progress status, for example, but hasn't been actively worked on, or there's been no status change in 47 days, that might be worth looking into. Why are we recruiting for this role if we're not making any progress on it, for example? So again, coming up at the top here, we'll look at some of the summary of insights. We've got 44 roles across the company that have been open for over 170 days, indicating some recruiter stagnation. We have broken out by department. This Bastel department represents the largest bottleneck with 42 roles still in not status. It's not started status. And we can customize basically how we weight the importance of understanding, like, is it okay that a rule has sat stagnant for 170 days, or is that something that's not expected within your environment? And then coming down here, we have a few more examples of the types of visualizations that are available to you in recipes. So we have your comparison here of the total days open to the total days inactive. So this headcount, for example, has been open for a very long time and also has been basically inactive since it was open. So that could be an indication like, hey, maybe this is a stale role that's no longer needed. And then again, we have it broken down by division. All right. So we've looked at a few roles that would be helpful for the business to review and understand how their hiring is progressing, as well as TA to understand their performance. The last piece that we're going to look at here is more finance focused in hiring slippage. So hiring slippage is really focused on understanding which headcount that were originally budgeted for this quarter have slipped, and what is the financial impact on this quarter and the next. So if I come down here and we look at the table, again, we have it broken down by headcount, and we can understand what was the initial budgeted quarter and now what is the projected quarter. So how far out has that headcount been moved? And then what is the annualized current cost removed from this quarter? So if you're thinking about your projected end of quarter run rate, we can see that for this role here, we expected it originally to add 86.8K in annualized cost to Q3, and now it's been removed because it's been pushed into Q4. And so we can also understand how that's impacting the following quarter. In this case, we're only, I believe, in Q1 or Q2 for this demo environment. So there is going to be, um, oh, sorry, we're looking at the next quarter cost relative to the initial quarter. So in this case, we are adding that cost in just into Q4. So you're getting the annualized cost added into that quarter. So a few of the insights that we have at the top here, we can see, for example, that 20 roles have slipped from their planned start quarters, representing 988K in deferred quarterly hiring costs. So if you think about your fiscal year planning or how your run rate is expected to increase with hiring throughout the year, um, because we're moving start dates out, we've actually deferred almost $1 million in hiring costs, which is very helpful for finance to understand how they've veered from plan, and also that there might be some additional funds available to invest in other projects, whether headcount related or not. Again, here's a really great example of the AI determining some useful information around leadership roles, resulting in 123K of um, headcount, so workforce capacity that was removed from the quarter. And then our visualization here, we can see our hiring slippage impact by division. So when we're thinking about our run rate broken down by division, we can see which ones are over and under based on hiring date slippage. So this is the power of TeamOhana, this idea that not only are we looking at what's currently happening in quarter in your current plan, but we're also able to forecast out what's happening. So when you think about the types of recipes or the types of queries you want to run, think about not only doing analysis on your current headcount, but also on what's projected to happen in the future. So, for example, how your forecasted headcounts is going to impact not only your budget and your forecast, but also things like span of control or org design to give you a really clear view of not only what's happening today, but also what you're forecasting to happen in the future based on your hiring plan. Okay, so that summarizes the three different recipes that we wanted to cover today. Happy to do some future sessions on the other recipes that we have. And I do have a little bit of time left here. So I see a few questions in the chat. Um, if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to enter them. But it looks like I have one here, a question around start date drift. So let me go back here. Can you filter this by recruiter or hiring manager? Would love to see who's driving the most drift on my team. Yep, absolutely. So some of these recipes you'll actually see have filters already baked in. So I don't think I have any here. But if it's not in the role already, I can always just ask here. Um, Show me start date drift by hiring manager. I can ask Teemo, and it will take what it's already learned from the start date drift table and then break that down by hiring manager instead. Next question to customize recipes. In the next, I think, week or so, I'm not sure on the exact date, we will be releasing a place for you to come within recipes so you can request additional recipes. Right now, we'll work with you to help customize and make sure that the data looks exactly as you expect. In a future release, we'll actually be letting you create your own recipes using Teemo as a starting point. So look out for both of those things in the future. And in the meantime, say like the next week or so, you can always reach out to your customer success manager, and they can help support you in getting a recipe created. Um, and last question I will take here. So I got my result here on my start date drift by hiring manager. So here we can see, based on the different hiring managers, how many days each one has drifted. Very helpful view to help understand which of my hiring managers are actually planning heads that are realistic and they can hire on time versus which ones are requesting a bunch of heads and then just kicking them out because they realize like they're not actually needed or they don't have a job description and they're not actually ready to hire them. And then last question here, does the cost impact factor in benefits and loaded comp, or is it just base salary? Yes, so let me go back to our hiring slippage. And just a reminder here, you can always check on how it works to understand how the different columns in the report are calculated. So in this case, we can see that the cost is your fully loaded cost. So based on the load factors that you already have set up in TeamOhana, the cost is taking into account your load factor. Great. So that concludes our demo and the rest at the end of our webinar. So thanks everyone so much for joining me. We will be doing these webinars every single week, so be sure to come back and check out what other topics we have coming up.